Hello everyone, welcome back to another tutorial. In this video, I'll show you how to build a simple REST API using ExpressJS and connect it to a React frontend. We'll be building a small counter app where you can add and subtract, and every time you click one of these buttons, it will actually store it and update it on the backend server, and it will display it on the React frontend. Now this is a great tutorial to learn how the frontend and the backend communicate using REST APIs. Let's get started. Alright, I've got a blank VS Code window open, and in the terminal, let's start by creating our server. So in your terminal, make a new folder called server. So for that, we'll do mkdir server, and we will cd into the server, and we will do npm init-y. What this does is, inside of our server folder, it will create a package.json, and in here, we'll be storing all of our dependencies. Now let's also install three things. So we'll first need to install npm install express, cores, and nodemon. Now what cores does is cores lets us allow requests from the front end when it's running on different ports. So our server and our front end will actually be running on different ports, and cores just lets us send and receive data from those two ports. Now once we did this, we can close out of our terminal, go to script, and under the test make a new one called dev, and we will set this to be nodemon index.js. Once you have this, we can close the terminal and actually make a new file inside of our server. We'll call this index.js, and in here we will program all of our server and make all the routes. Okay, in our server we must first import the two dependencies that we need, which is going to be express and cores. So we'll do const express is equal to require express. We'll also do const cores is equal to require cores, and under here we'll actually make our app. So we'll do app is equal to express, and we'll do app.use cores, and we'll also do app.use express.json. This app.use express.json, this just lets us take incoming JSON request from our front end. Now once we have this, we can actually run our app. So we'll do app.listen, and we will run this on port 5000. And once it's run, we will actually console.log saying our server started on port 5000. Now if we save this, open the terminal, and do npm run dev. There we go. It'll say server started on port 500. Oh, this is supposed to be 5000 here. My bad. So, but if we save this, it'll say server started on port 5000. Now we can start working on three routes. One to actually get the count value, one to add it by 1, and the other one will subtract it by 1. In our server, let's make a count variable. So we'll do let count is equal to 0. And we will work on three routes. The first one will be the get request, which will send back to the user the value of the count. So we'll do app.get/count. This will take in the request, the response, and we will send back to the user response.json, curly brackets, count, and the value of the count, which will be just count. We also need to work on a post request to add 1 to the count. So we'll do app.post/add. This will also take in a request, a response, and we will first count is equal to count plus 1, and we will send back to the user. So we'll do response.json count:count. Now we can actually just copy and paste this, change the /add to be /subtract, and instead of adding plus 1, we'll just subtract 1. So once you've done this, we've actually set up all of the three routes that we need. So we can close out of the server, and we can start programming and also creating our front-end React. Make sure your server is running. So once your server is running, go ahead and make a new terminal by clicking the plus over here. And we can do npm create v at latest. We will call this project the client. We will choose React, and we'll choose JavaScript. Now we can cd into the client and do npm install to install all of the dependencies. Now this could take a while, so I'll come back when it's finished. Once it's installed all of the dependencies, we can actually do npm run dev, and it'll start the project on localhost 5173. Go ahead and open this in your browser. Once you open this, it should make this boilerplate Vite plus React code. Once it's made this, just go ahead and close your terminal. Go inside of the client folder, go to source and app.jsx. Once you're in here, we can delete all of this app.jsx and just type in rfce and click enter. If the rfce command doesn't work, go to your extensions, search for React, and install the first one over here. Once you've done this, we can save our project, and as you can see, it's going to automatically refresh on the browser. Now let's start programming our front end to actually fetch the backend and add or subtract from our variable. We can start by importing useState and useEffect. And once we have this, let's make a useState which will store the count value. So we'll do const count and set count is equal to useState, and we'll leave this blank for now because we will be making a useEffect which will actually fetch the initial variable and then save it here. So under here we'll do useEffect. We'll make an arrow function. So we'll make an arrow function, and we will have a empty dependency array. And in our useEffect, let's make a async function which will fetch the API. So we'll do const fetch server is equal to async arrow function, and here we'll do await fetch. Actually no, we'll do const response is equal to await fetch, and we can actually copy and paste this here and put the fetch as being this, but instead of 5173 we'll make this 5000 and we'll do /count. Now we can do const data is equal to await res.json, and we'll check. So if we have data, so if data, then we will set the count to be data.count. Now we can run our function here. So we'll do fetch server. Now if we save this in our HTML, let's actually display the data. So I'll delete this, make an empty fragment, and in here we'll make an h1 tag that says count, and then curly brackets, and then we'll just put the count variable. Now if we save this, as you can see, it'll say count is 0. Now the reason we know that this works is because if you remember, in our original state here, we just set the default value to be nothing, but it's still showing 0, which means that it's actually fetching our backend correctly. Now we'll make two buttons. One will be to add and the other one will subtract. So we'll make the first button, we'll call this add, and we'll make this call the add function, which we'll actually make right now. So we'll do const add is async, and let's actually make another one. We'll call this subtract, and in our button we'll do on click. We'll make a function which will call the add function over here, and we will copy and paste this button, and we will call this subtract, and we'll also make this call the subtract function. Now if we save this, it'll make two buttons, and in our add function, let's start programming the logic. So we'll do const response is await fetch. We can actually just copy and paste this entire thing here, and instead of having /count, we'll just have this do /add, and after this add a comma, curly brackets, and in here we'll do method colon post, because if you remember, in our index.js in our server, we made the add and subtract both be post requests. So we can close this. Now we'll do const data is await response.json, and we'll do if data. So if we have some data, then we will set the count to be data.count. Now if we save this and click the add button, hold on, looks like we have an error. Let me see what went wrong. I see what I did. In the add button, we actually forgot to put the parentheses after the add function, so just put the parentheses there. Now if we save this and run our app, if we click add, as you can see, it's going to add 1, and this is actually being updated in the backend, so even if we refresh our page, the value will persist. Now for the subtract function, it's basically the same logic, so we can just copy and paste this entire thing here actually, but instead of calling /add, we'll call /subtract. And now if we save this and run it, as you can see, if we click subtract, oh yeah, also we have to also add parentheses after calling the function here in our button. So if we save this and click subtract, it'll also add. I think I see what we did. In our subtract route, we're doing +1, but this is supposed to be subtract 1. So if we save this and run it again, if we click subtract, it's going to subtract 1. Alright, so this is just a simple tutorial explanation on REST APIs using ExpressJS and then connecting it to a React frontend. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please leave a like and do subscribe. And thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.